Welcome to the Jaren Jarvis channel. I am Jaren Jarvis. Today, I would like to introduce to you, we ran an experiment to chart the mental state of a human being with no senses. It was a mistake. The human imagination is a slave to experience. A thrall to sight, smell, sound, taste and touch. Creation is a ruse, a discordant combination of everything that came before. Even the greatest inventions had to start somewhere. Every painting has an inspiration, a muse. True to our species form, we steal, bastardize, and recreate in our own image. On August 19, 2011, we asked, what can humanity create when robbed of its ability to take from others? Sight was the easiest. Two wires behind the corneas, heated white hot and pressed against the optical nerve. We did not wish to maim the child, only its first sense. It cried, its harsh screams driving white hotness of their own into the spots behind my eyes. A migraine came and went. The baby's crying came, and went. It would be all right. This was only a circumcision, he would never remember. Would he? A similar procedure was performed for the ears and nose. There was the ever-present danger of the child's eardrums growing back, so we did the scans, guided another wire into the primary auditory cortex. He would never hear voices, or music. We did the same with his piriform. The last thing the child would smell was his own burning flesh, and the last thing he would taste was the faint hint of copper as we severed both connections at once. The hardest was his sense of touch. Perhaps we should have done this first, so he would not feel pain. The child was being to understand, if only at a subconscious level. He wailed wordless obscenities at the surgeon as his brain was poked, prodded. The base of the somatosensory system was found. Severed. The subject ceased its wailing, perhaps it knew there was no point. Or perhaps it could no longer feel its own vocal cords vibrating against the thin walls of its young throat. The empty shell of a man that was once Dr. Crane stepped back, hands shaking. He'd held on through the procedure. No longer. The man did not look like a surgeon. It's done, he said. He walked out of the room. I doubted he would ever recover from his actions today. Not me. I don't participate. Only record. 4 days later, Dr. Crane shot himself in the head. Hazmat came through to clean the scraps of Dr. Crane off the walls. They would not let us in. I didn't understand why not. Why would anyone want to see him that way, regardless? All the same, Dr. Crane had done his job. All that was left was to wait. The mind of a newborn is remarkably resilient. Under the harsh glare of innumerable MRIs, his brain began to reform in a worthless attempt to regain some semblance of understanding. To undo the circumcision. We had pills for that, and the shifting stopped. We named him Toad. We watched him, scanned him, prodded him with needles. We fed Toad through an 4-tube that he had no interest in interacting with. Why would he? He wouldn't know it was there. I was admittedly disappointed in the uneventfulness of those first 5 years. If I could have quit, I would have, not out of ambivalence but out of boredom. I locked myself in my room in the evenings, reading the same books, eating the same protein packs for 5 years. I think I might have followed Crane into the abyss after much longer of this. I was saved by Toad. 2 days after his 5th birthday, he crawled. It was nothing short of spectacular. He didn't really go anywhere, just milled about his 10 by 10 glass box for a while. He bumped into walls, and something in his primal brain told him to turn around. We attached a few nodes to him and watched this happen. Little parts of his brain lit up like a pinball machine whenever he hit one. Something was telling him to turn around and stop hitting the wall. Survival instincts, perhaps? Year 7. Today, he walks. Other than that, he still does the same, mills about his glass prison, but somehow holds himself up on atrophied legs. I imagine it would hurt if it could. Dr. Wilde is convinced that Toad stares at her when she examines him. I think she is going crazy. However, I think he stares at me too. I try not to think anything of it. It is 3 days after Toad first took his steps. His head mills about the room, fixating for tender moments on objects that are not there. I wonder what he sees. Our latest MRI suggests brain activity beyond what we would expect from a 7-year-old. Even a healthy one, which Toad is not. Today, he growled. It was soft, almost pleasant. He hasn't used his vocal cords since he was a newborn. I'm surprised they even work. Strangely enough, I'm happy for him. What I am less happy about is the crack on the southern wall of Toad's room. Maintenance is fixing it, but it could contaminate our research. He speaks. Not words, but he speaks. It is a simple language, composed mostly of grunts, moans and the occasional attempt at an M sound. His MRIs show activity unlike anything we've ever seen. Without his senses getting in the way, there is no telling what a boy like him, could create. An MRI came back today. The occipital lobe grows brighter white with each passing day. There's no telling what it means, but the grunts have turned into growls and squeaks in the back of his throat. He is trying to speak. We will not be able to run any more scans. Dr. Wilde followed Dr. Crane's path and painted the walls with her brains. Hazmat did not come. Perhaps they've forgotten about us. This experiment should be ended. I would end it myself, were it up to me. The facility stinks of rot. Maintenance has not come to fix the glass, and the crack has only gotten larger since the day it was recorded. Toad sits on the wall closest to Dr. Wilde's old room, where her decaying, bloated form sits idly in wait for someone to come rescue her. He sniffs the air and salivates. I do not know why. He can't smell. Today, Toad spoke to me. He looked right at me, he smiled and he spoke to me. Robert, you don't meddle with what you don't understand. In near shambles, I asked him what he meant. And for fuck's sake, he responded. When your kind has nothing to form itself around, it becomes an empty vessel. And I thank you for that. He turned and sat down in the corner where Wilde's room is closest. He sniffs the air as globules of thick saliva drip unfettered from his unfeeling tongue. I've decided for my sake, for our employer's sake, that this experiment needs to end. I am going to kill Toad and put a stop to this once and for all. We venture into territory that we don't understand. At the beginning of this journal I asked the reader, what can humanity create when robbed of its ability to take from others? The answer is nothing. It only gets taken over by something more qualified. I hope to bring you good news soon, but I have none now. For the glass that was scratched is now broken, and I cannot find him.